All right. Well, thank you again for joining us. And if you haven't seen the message yet, when you enter in, if you want to make sure that you introduce yourself in the chat by typing your name and organization. And then we had some instructions up briefly too. If on your little profile picture video that's showing, if you want to change your name that appears in that little window to have your name and organization and pronouns, that would be great as well. Just a reminder that this session is being recorded. So if for some reason your colleagues weren't able to join today or you needed to reference something that we talked about, this is going to be available and we will post it up on the My Shy My Future Partners webpage. The webinar from last Friday that Project Exploration kicked off is also will be uploaded there too. So this is kind of a two-part webinar that we did. And you'll see that on the team, we have our facilitators from Project Exploration today. They'll be able to introduce themselves, and I see some waving hands. And then we have some folks from Northwestern. So Emily DePalma and I will be facilitating. We have a couple other friends from our office too that are helping facilitate, so we can help look at your conversation in the chat and make sure that we keep the conversation flowing and that all voices are able to be supported here during the call today. So to kick off, I'm going to pass this on to Natasha from Project Exploration, and she's going to talk about our agenda for the day.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Jen. Natasha Smith-Walker, Executive Director of Project Exploration. It's a great honor to be here presenting in front of so many amazing organizations that I see online, people I've worked with, people we're working with, and so welcome and happy Friday. As Jen said, we hosted a conversation last Friday around the process that Project Exploration took on to really rethink and pivot and understand what was necessary for us as an organization to continue to remain true to our mission. And so today is actually opportunity to actually have the program team present what we ended up doing. And so I'm really pleased about that. And so again, we'll talk a little bit about us as an organization and the nuances that went on to get to this product place. We're going to talk a little bit about the new model of programming that really builds from our existing programming that we've been doing for about 20 years. We're going to talk about how are we connecting with our communities, our families, and our youth. And we're going to address some barriers. There's been challenges. Obviously, this work hasn't been easy, and I'm sure it's not been easy for many of us. And so I think this is a great opportunity for us to share our challenges and be really transparent, but I also would love to make sure that we open up conversation for others to talk through the barriers that they may be experiencing as well. So with that, I am going to go ahead and allow my team to take over. And again, great seeing many of you all that I've worked with over the years.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kelly Patel. I'm the Deputy Director for Project Exploration. And if you joined last week, you've already kind of gotten to know us. I'm excited for you to, myself and Natasha, I'm excited for you to get to know our program team today and really want them to, be the voice of what we're doing, because they're certainly the champions of it. They're the ones who helped us put it together, and they're also the ones who are now doing the important work in meeting our mission, continuing to meet our mission during this virtual phase. So I want to give them each the chance to introduce themselves, and we're going to basically do a virtual panel Q&A with our program team and with myself. So we'll kick it off with Sarah Tinsman, our program director, your pre-COVID role and kind of what your job looks like now.
Awesome. Thanks, Kelly. Hi, everybody. My name is Sarah Tinsman. I'm the program director for Project Exploration. My role pre-COVID was managing our in-person programming that happens at our schools, as well as our Westside STEM Learning Center, and working with our two program managers, Shanisa Wiggins and Ale Lopez. Post-COVID, or during COVID, I guess we're not post yet, unfortunately. Just, everyone kind of working together, still working with the program managers, but kind of pivoting from our STEM Learning Center and in-person programming at schools to online and the virtual space and our STEM at Home platform. And I'm going to popcorn Ale.
Yes. Hi, everybody. My name is Alexandra Lopez. I am the school-based program manager. My role before COVID, it's very interesting because I joined the team right at that moment where everything started and we started going into quarantine. So I technically was not able to experience my role in outside of quarantine. I've been quarantined and I've been interacting with my team in that way. And I've met majority of the team through virtual meetings and all of that. So I am more familiar with my role during quarantine and during COVID. And basically working alongside the program team, building our STEM at Home platform, and doing everything that's on my plate to make it happen. So a very interesting journey, but I love it, and it's been very, very exciting. So I will popcorn Naomi.
Thanks, Ale. I'm Naomi Oster. I'm our program operations manager. That means that I make sure that program can happen at all of our sites across the city. And that's really what that looks like. I help operations and supplies and equipment in all of our programs. I do our data management and have a role in program planning and evaluation, and really supporting the program managers on our team.
So, hi, I'm Shanisa Wiggins. I'm the program director for the Westside STEM Learning Center. There, I work with the program team to make sure that we're bringing sufficient programs to our students over at the Westside STEM Learning Center, and working with partners a lot as well. Through the virtual aspect, I'm doing a lot of the same and helping with additional items of reaching out to more partners, connecting with families, creating a family team online, what we are doing now as well, and still engaging with our families a lot as well.
Great, thank you guys. Yeah, major kudos to Ale, who still has not met several of our team members in person. So that's quite the feat, that a challenge that we continue to encounter. And Ale, we look forward to meeting you face to face one of these days. Sarah Tinsman, can you talk about what our team looks like typically? How we typically work and what a normal day looks like, if in case the organizations who joined us today aren't familiar with PE kind of pre-COVID.
Yeah, for sure. So we have 2 office locations. We have our Westside STEM Learning Center, which is in Austin, and then we have our office, which is in Bronzeville. We have 3 of our team members who are actually working remote, Kelly being one of them, and as well as Sarah Hoberg and Eddie Krillenberger, who are both on our team. They work from home. And then we kind of divide and conquer between the 2 spaces, going back and forth often depending on what's happening. It's usually Natasha, myself, Kachetta Potts, who does special programs, Doug, who is our Vista worker for AmeriCorps, myself, and Ale also at the Bronzeville office. Ale's never been there yet, but that's where she would be. And that is kind of our hub there. And then we have Shanisa and Naomi, who are usually at our Westside STEM Learning Center. Ale and myself, and oftentimes Natasha, are driving back and forth between the Westside and Bronzeville, whether it's getting materials for facilitators, if we have an event that's at the Westside STEM Learning Center, going over there to attend that. And just back and forth that way. So the PE team's always on the move. We're always trying to find a way to kind of meet our facilitators and our kids where they're at. So Naomi also does a really nice job of having supplies at the Westside STEM Learning Center, as well as our Bronzeville office, which makes it easy for facilitators to come and get what they need in order to run program where they hold it.
Yeah, all of that to say is normally we have a lot of face-to-face time. Our desks sit right on top of each other, with the exception of a couple of us who are remote. This has been quite the shift for us. We're a small team of 9 full-time staff members and 4 part-time, and we're trying to do a lot of work in that space. So why this part of this, the reason why this has been so challenging is because we're used to so much FaceTime. But yeah, that's exactly right, Sarah, that, you know, usually we're going to where our kids are at, and obviously now that's a little bit more challenging. Naomi, can you touch on kind of our youth and our programs, what our programs normally look like?
Yeah, normally we serve about 500 kids a year. We have 25 or so part-time direct service providers who are running our programs themselves in support of our program team. With the support of our program team, we run about 28 programs a year between the South and West Sides across 8 different sites, both in schools and at the Westside STEM Learning Center in Austin. And then virtual programming has been serving the same service areas, but in a little bit of a different way.
Great. And Ale, can you talk about, you know, how we're doing business now, you know, how we're operating, and particularly for those who weren't able to join us last week, like what has our team culture looked like in this virtual space?
Yeah. So something that's been very helpful for us is that we do daily check-ins. So every morning we have a meeting every day. Everybody shares a little bit about their day-to-day life, how's family going, and personal anecdotes. And then we also sometimes have some lighthearted stuff like quizzes or fun facts. And it helps us a lot to stay connected. Especially during this time, you can maybe intentional or unintentionally disconnect from people. So it keeps us connected. And then after that, we kind of go over our calendar and make sure that nothing is conflicting. And we move on with our day. We share what we're working on and if anybody needs help, and then we move on. And after, another thing that really also helps us is that I think we have a really good rhythm in when we have action items or when we're working on a big project. We are constantly meeting with each other and talking to each other. I think that is our way of, maybe when you're in the office, everybody is there. If you have a quick question, you can just pop into the other person's desk and be like, hey, can you answer this question? Can you help me with this? Well, we cannot do that right now. So we're very intentional about, let's not linger in unknowns, and let's just have a quick meeting, or let's just have a Google Hangout or a Zoom quick meeting and talk through this. And that's something that has helped us build ideas and basically like work faster, and things that probably would have taken longer, we are able to work through it better. I think that helps the team connect and just keep our feet moving. And I think that we already shared some of that in that other meeting, or sorry, that other webinar. So if you want to know more, you can always look at that.
Yeah, definitely take a look back at the recording if you missed last week. Shanisa, can you touch on kind of our team working model and what we're doing to meet the needs of families right now?
Yes, with our model, we continue to stay with our mission, with our STEM at home model, and that was to make sure that we're creating shares for them learning for our students, and still making sure that they engage in STEM with their families. Our high touch with that will be steady staying in contact with families. I'm reaching out to families once a week. Once a week, we're talking to families, we're talking to youth. I'm also taking time out where we as a team are also taking time out with some of the individuals that don't have family support to help with e-learning and things like that after hours, helping kids with homework, helping them with the family structure, reaching out to the parents and, you know, just talking to them more about work. Some parents are working from home and trying to make sure that their kids doing e-learning and working with us with STEM at home. So just working with them on building out a structure home for the kids to make sure things are still in a structure as if they were going to school, making sure they participate in everything and that they're getting help from us at the same time. So we sent out surveys to families just to ask them what was their needs and how can we help. After doing that, we reached out to different organizations and partners to make sure that we are able to fulfill our family needs at the same time. So our biggest thing for our team model is just sticking to our mission throughout the whole COVID-19 and going on further with our programming.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Shanisa. And yeah, speaking of STEM at home, we can dive in a little bit deeper. This is kind of the slide here shows kind of the blue sky look at STEM at home. Overall, they fall in 3 different buckets, which our team's going to expand upon. But PE Cares describing kind of how we're meeting the basic needs of family, as Shanisa touched on. Our virtual live programs, which is most closely aligned to what we normally do in the after school space. And then our STEM books and STEM at home kits, which if you joined our webinar last week, you know that, with this crazy idea that came up during our brainstorming ended up actually being what was most feasible and what we could do most quickly and most cost effectively to meet the young people and our families where they're at. Ale, can you talk a little bit about what we're doing with PE Cares and maybe an anecdote to share about like what that actually looks like in practice?
Yes, sure. So PE Cares, I think something very special about how this started is just the genuine desire to meet our family's needs. And one of our team members was sharing just how the families are reaching out and have all of these different challenges and situations because of the circumstances of COVID and all things that are happening. And we strategized around it, around that, and we gathered resources for them. So that was like the basic, the way it started. And now it's more like, how can we respond to those needs? And if we don't have those resources, then point them out to those resources. And one of the ways, for example, there's a way that they can directly message us on our website. Somebody sent us a message looking for eye care, affordable eye care, and if we knew about it. And we just did some research, asked the team, hey, do you guys know about this? We had other resources, but not necessarily that. And then we just gather all the information, share the information to this person. And even though they might not be able to do that right now because of what we're going through, just being able to talk to somebody and tell them, hey, this is my need and this is how I feel, and just receiving immediate response, I think is alleviates that those feelings of anxiety. And another example is like one of our families, they're Spanish speakers and they have a lot of questions and they have a lot of needs, and we could connect with them and we could talk to them and explain to them how to use our resources in their language. So I think that those are ways that we show them that not only PE Cares is like something that we do, but it's something that we actually believe in, that we care for our community.
Yeah, that was great, Ale, and definitely the 2 examples definitely highlight kind of how it is working in practice. I think what PE Cares evolved into, I mean, we recognize that the needs of our families are so much greater right now than high quality STEM programs, but that's not our mission to provide housing, to provide support around domestic violence, to provide rental assistance. PE Cares describes the program through which we're leveraging the strengths of our partners and directing families to other groups and other organizations that can meet their needs. Our virtual live programs, Shanisa, can you talk about what we're doing there and what those look like?
Yes. So our virtual live programs are ran twice a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays. We also host a virtual lunchroom. Our virtual lunchroom is just for us to connect with middle school age youth in a mentoring aspect of just hearing what they're going through day to day, listening to what they want to talk about, and making sure we're creating activities and conversation around those things to just keep them in the norm of being virtual and the things that they may be going through at home, just to give them a safe space to talk and engage with other youth that may be having the same problems they're having. We also have our virtual classrooms that are set up from K to 2, 3 to 5, and 6 to 8th grade, where our facilitators make sure that they have age appropriate content level for the kids to engage in, as well as each project or each thing that we're doing with them on a day-to-day are materials that they can find in home or materials that's in their STEM at home kit to actually participate. It's not mandatory for them to have material, but it's always fun if they do. And if they don't, they're still following along. They're still asking questions and able to engage with the facilitator and still get all of their learning. We are partnering with some of our partners like U of I. We use for some of our virtual live programming for the lunchrooms, we're bringing in financial literacy, where we're working with U of I to bring in the financial literacy aspect to start working with our youth on those things just to prepare them for their financial futures as well. We're working with other organizations to help write STEM book pages, and we're doing those partnerships and adding other organizations who wants to put out more STEM or go virtually more, but they're partnering with us to be able to do that at the same time. So we are working with partners that want to work with us at the same time.
Yeah, that's so helpful. And there's one thing that I do want to touch on. I think we, Shanisa, one thing that we were really conscious of is like, how do we protect our young people in these spaces? Can you talk about the staff structure and,
Yeah.
how we're manning those Zoom rooms?
Yes, so we did think about like the safety of all of the kids. So after 15 minutes of class starting, we lock the classrooms and no one else can actually enter into our classrooms after 15 minutes. When they come in, the students, when we first come in, we do a attendance for students where students announce their names. Myself, it's 2 people to a room. It'll be myself and a facilitator, or Ale and a facilitator, or Sarah and a facilitator. Whoever is the assistant there, we automatically change the screen name to our child's name in our format, so we'll know that those are students that we brought in, and we have attendance that we're taking and keeping track of who's coming in and out, because we lock it with the password where no one can actually come in and out of our sessions as well. So that's basically how we have it set up and structured. We have this thing where they come in, we automatically do the attendance. We have sign languages, what they do throughout the session of like, if they have a question or if they like it, thumbs up, if it's down, like that. Maybe if they understand, like we have sign signals so that everyone is muted until it's actually time to talk, to make sure that no one is doing anything inappropriate as far as language in the background as well.
Yeah, that's so helpful. I mean, I think we were really conscious, right, of trying to align our normal program model with our virtual program model. In our typical model, no adult is ever alone with a child, for this, both the safety of the child as well as of our staff. That's something we model in our virtual programs as well, as kind of an example. Our STEM books and STEM at home kits, Sarah, can you kind of talk about what we're doing there?
Yeah, for sure. So on our website, we realized that we needed to push something out right away that students could engage with. So we developed our STEM at home workbook pages and our activity pages. And what these pages are activities that students can do at home with minimal to no materials, because we wanted to make sure that they were accessible to kids at home. And those activities are obviously backed by a certain science concept. And so while engaging in doing these activities, they're also building their science knowledge, which is obviously the biggest part of PE's mission. When we think about our students that we serve and what their access is in terms of technology and Wi-Fi, we realize that there is a lot of inequality. A lot of our students don't have access to devices, nor do they have access to reliable Wi-Fi. And so in an effort to provide these activities to the kids that we serve, we decided that what we were going to do is we were going to print those activities out and send them to our students directly to where they live. And so we are sending out a STEM kit once a month. We sent 65 kits a couple weeks ago, and we plan on sending 78 in this next coming week. We include not only those printed pages that are the hard copies of the e-copies that are on our website right now, but we also gather materials that are cheap and that we can get off of Amazon that can enhance the learning and enhance the activity for students. So in our first kit, we provided popsicle sticks and pipe cleaners and rubber bands and some balloons. And so recognizing that students may have the majority of the things at home, we wanted to make sure that there wasn't any gaps, realizing that there may already be gaps in what students have access to. And so we are really excited to send that second batch to even more kids next week. And actually, before I move on, I'm seeing a question from Kara. We don't ship the things directly to Amazon. So those supplies get shipped to the box builder's house, which was my house last time. And so the Amazon comes, the workbook pages came to me, and I just took all of those and I put those into boxes, and then we put them into the mail. So.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. Yeah, and I think one thing that I quickly want to mention is that in this next batch, since we've now been talking to all of our partners, I mean, there's no sense in all of us duplicating efforts and mailing a bunch of supplies and materials to the same students. So including resources like masks from our partners, one of our partners in this next STEM kit, including an activity from a different partner in that next STEM at home box. Thinking about how you can collaborate like that to reach a larger number of youth, and so that we're not combining or duplicating efforts. To touch on building community, one of the ways we're reaching out to our families is through Zoom info sessions. Shanisa, can you talk about our upcoming parent town hall?
Yes, this is my favorite part. I love parent town halls. I love working with the families and the parents. So we are doing a virtual parent town hall. Our virtual parent town hall will introduce the parents to our STEM at Home platform completely. We're going to talk to them. We're going to have a session on talking about social emotional things. We're going to talk about building out family workshops and see what interests that the families have on what workshops they want to host. And that we're going to make sure we're working with partners to make sure that those workshops are facilitated at the same time. We're talking about family nights. So a lot of families were saying, you know, if we can get together for family nights virtually. So I know we do have one partner that wants to do a paint and sip family night for us and things like that, just to making sure that we're staying connected with the families, that we're building family within the homes, and that the families know that we're a safe place that they can come to for anything and any resources that they may have, just making every participant of PE feel like a family at a whole.
Thanks, Shanisa. And we touched briefly on our virtual lunchroom. Ali, can you expand on that a little bit? Like, what's the purpose of that lunchroom? You know, what has that experience been like for our young people?
So virtual lunchroom came from the desire to build mentorship. Mentorship is one of the aspects that kind of comes naturally in our regular programming because we are in person and the kids can build those relationships, and we didn't want the virtual aspect to take away from that. So we created the virtual lunchroom where they will learn how to deal with social emotional issues, character education, and also learning about their interests and bringing that back into our regular virtual sessions. So that way we are catering to their interests. And one of the experiences during our virtual lunchrooms is that we learned so much about the kids. One of the participants shared her favorite music, and our first session was all about me. Let's talk about the things that you like, and I think it's a great way to connect with them, and also for us as program team to reconnect with our mission outside of STEM and the things that we do, also connecting with our community and our kids.
Yeah, you're so right, Ali. That's one way we're getting feedback from our kids and knowing what their interests are, so we can build that into our virtual programming. Naomi, how else are we getting feedback from families and from our young people?
Yeah, so feedback has looked in a couple different ways. Surveys have gone out both on our website that we built out, the STEM at Home website, things like what they need through PE Cares, a technology survey, and then also using texting, being mindful that parents are on their phones. So sending out a mass text to families and then getting them to sign up through those links. And then making sure that registration is as seamless as possible. We know that families don't want to enter in their information 1,000 times on our website, and really taking the time to build that out, even though it has been a challenge as we're all learning through it, has been really helpful in making sure that families don't overwork.
Thanks, Naomi. Yeah, and Sarah, can you close this out on building community, the kind of the other ways we're utilizing?
Yeah, so in addition to all the other strategies that we're implementing, we're focusing on ramping up our social media presence, partnering with different organizations, finding ways to collaborate. I know Kelly mentioned other organizations that are also wanting things to be mailed to students, pairing up and teaming up with them to get those out. We're also doing things called virtual coffees where people can sign up to have coffee with one of us. And we talk about STEM at home and engage with them, whether that's as a donor or a partner or a science mentor, or just someone that wants to hear more about what we're doing. So really kind of pushing the word out in as many ways as possible, and getting excited about the return.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Sarah. Obviously, we've encountered a lot of barriers along the way. Specifically, obviously, technology has been a big one. Naomi, can you touch on that and, how we've overcome some of the barriers of staying connected with technology?
Definitely. It's been a barrier. I will say that we obviously run a STEM organization, but are not all techies. I've really been focusing on how-to videos and struggling, and then releasing that fear of building out our website, using a new platform, and really even converting to virtual programs. And then doing that FAQ and that skill sharing for both our team and our families, creating how-to videos and working through the website and virtual programs is going to be a part of that family orientation that Shanisa is running, and then creating videos that they can access really quickly to make that stuff really easy. We use project management software that I know Kelly talked about last week called Asana, and then we utilize Zoom and Hangouts, and really try to be a resource both for each other and the families that we serve.
Yeah, we've really built out a lot on our website so that we're representing this new virtual space there. And that's been definitely an all hands on deck approach. I think one example of kind of, building the staff capacity on our team. Usually prior to COVID, there was only a few of us with hands in the website, but since we're doing so much more there, yeah, Naomi, we've gotten you back in there now. So utilizing your strengths and building your staff capacity that way. Also recognizing that while technology can help you bridge the gap, sometimes it's old school solutions that work best. Shanisa, can you talk about, how we're overcoming the digital divide, which so many of our families are experiencing?
Yes, so we are making sure that we're reaching out to parents and talking about the technical issues. A lot of parents had just questions on how do I use Zoom, or how do I turn on the computer, or how do I click them into this? So we have been taking time to go step by step with parents to introduce them to what their children really need to do as far as like e-learning as well as STEM. So we're really pushing for the kids to complete e-learning as well as STEM as well. So it's not just about PE. Again, we're open to working with the partners and anyone that we're looking for, because it's all about the kids and making sure that they get the max out of whatever type of learning that's out there for them at this time. We have issues with parents working from home with one computer that they have to work from home with like 2 or 3 kids that have to do e-learning, or kids that has to get online, that want to get online for STEM. It's why we split up the time frames of it goes back to back. It's no classes run at the same time for the age groups for us. So just talking with parents through that. No internet connection, so helping them find the places that's giving out the free internet connection, making sure they get those things. Our snail mail, with working with them with sending us them at home packages. Parents were so excited about getting those. We had students sending us videos of opening up the boxes and saying thank you. They really appreciated getting the material in their hand and actually being able to get the card to tell them how to register to come online and do virtual classes with those materials too, and see some of their classmates at the same time and do STEM projects with that. We also have been connecting with our partners once again to implement and put things into those STEM kits for us. So that's how we have kind of like breaking the barrier of just coming digital. And again, those weekly phone calls that we have with parents, that helps out a lot, because if they have any questions, sometimes I'm on the phone with a parent for 30 to 40 minutes, just answering a bunch of questions about their kid homework for the week, or how do the kid do this, or what's the next step for this, or about any resources. And that's what we do. So that's what made us create our Google Voice numbers, where we actually have a phone number where parents can call for like resources. If they have just a resource question, they call that phone number, leave a message, and we get back to them within a couple hours at the max of reaching back out to our parents with questions. If we have an answer, whether we have an answer or we don't, we make sure we connect with the parent to let them know what our responses are. We also have a Google Voice number for our students, which is office hours. If they need help during those office hours, they can call into our office hours line, and we help them with that as well throughout the daytime.
Yeah, quickly, one more question for Sarah Tinsman before we open it up to the audience. In terms of time and human power, obviously this has been a heavy lift. We've touched on a number of different ways where we're meeting the needs of family and overcoming these barriers. But how do we keep communication, and how have we transitioned roles?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think it just comes down to the PE team being scrappy and really believing in the work that we're doing. We're blowing up each other's phones on a regular basis, which makes it easy. And just like Ale said at the beginning, you know, if we need to get something done, like we all pitch in, we all make it happen, like regardless of role, regardless of title, because we all believe in what we're doing, and we're going to find a way to like stay in touch and to communicate with families, communicate with each other, communicate with you guys, to make kids, to give kids those engaging STEM opportunities that they deserve.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. And thanks to our whole team. I mean, I think one thing that we've all hit on again and again, and one thing that we've seen in these sessions that Northwestern has hosted and that OSEP has hosted is that, you know, everyone is eager to collaborate right now. I think one of the interesting things that we're recognizing is sometimes that partnership isn't easy. So something that I do want to make sure that we get to while we answer your questions is the Zoom poll. Like, what are the barriers that are preventing you from partnering with other organizations? Emily, I don't know if you can help us get the poll up there, because we want to hear from you all. Like, we recognize that partnerships are so powerful right now, and you know, if we're not going to be duplicating efforts, then we need to be working together. But if that isn't happening for you yet, what are those barriers? And so we do have a poll here. If you have other barriers that aren't addressed here, definitely put them in the chat, and put your questions in the chat at this time as well. I did see a question for how many parents are we calling per week. Shanisa, can you touch on how many students we're touching on?
So I have a total of 60 students in the set right now that we're actually reaching out to. So at first I was going 30 per week and 30 the next week. Now that I lay myself and we have brought on someone else to help with our phone calls, we will be actually reaching over 100 people by the end of next month, and we will be able to do that on a weekly basis as well.
And Emily just said the poll is live and multiple choice. We'd definitely love to share the results of everyone. So please, if you haven't taken a chance to answer that poll yet, please do so. And additional questions from everyone. Are there any barriers that you all are experiencing that have been a challenge in this remote space? Maybe something that you're still trying to troubleshoot as a team? It said, Kara shares, my organization has lots of partnerships set up already, and we're just trying to figure out the CPS regulations. Kara, can you put your hand up so we can unmute you? I'd love to hear a little bit more about that challenge.
And as you're doing that, I'm going to jump in, Kara, because I know we've been kind of going back and forth. I think the key thing that everyone needs to recognize is that CPS does have a variety of regulations that they're confronted with. However, the one thing that I'm going to advise everybody is that like park districts or like Boys and Girls Clubs, many students come off campus to do after school programming. And so it's really the responsibility of the organization to start to work with parents. The first thing that we actually did before getting started was really connect with parents to understand what was the need, what was the demand, what would work and what wouldn't work, and ensuring through our relationships with parents directly what kinds of things we would start to provide and how that would happen. But first and foremost, we really did need to understand the technology needs and understand how to support families and more, and mostly engage them in the conversation around how we were actually going to do programming with students. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Thanks, Natasha. Kara, go ahead.
So my organization's unique. It's not a STEM organization. I'm actually the STEM person, the only STEM person. We actually have two parts, and we separately work with like a partnership team to connect partners to schools. And then we have specific master's level like counseling staff that are in schools. And so our staff that are in schools, they have CPS emails and they're able to contact students and all of that. What we haven't figured out, because I would go into the schools and I would go into the teacher's classroom and I would do an after school program with the students, but we haven't figured out how it's possible for me to actually do that, because they say that like outside partners can't have access to students through calls and at home and stuff like that. And so I think that's where we're at right now, is kind of understand like how I can do that. Like I know I can do like a video and have people post a video and have the students do like similar at-home kits as you were talking about. That's actually part of one of my summer plans. But I would absolutely love to be able to do at least like once a week check-in video call with them, kind of a thing. And so I know you all said that you had contacted parents first and gotten the parents' permission first. And I don't know if that's different because you're like a separate organization, or I don't know, I guess, how to get around those regulations.
Natasha, would you like to touch on that?
Yeah, so I think that the most important part of it is, we already had conducted our own registration process. And so from a perspective of an organization, that even when we're working in schools or when we're working at our STEM hub, we do have constant contact with parents. And so when all of this went down, we started communicating directly with parents at the onset. So back in March, to just get parents to understand that we understood that this was going on, and that as time evolved, we would continue to work with them around how to continue to offer these opportunities. And so I think that the piece of advice that I can offer, Kara, is that if once CPS sort of, and we've actually had conversations with CPS around this as well. But the one thing that we are coming back on is that, because we had communication and constant touch points with parents pre-COVID, it was a heavy lift, obviously, because now we're having to do the frequency was much more than what we normally had anticipated. But we really got getting in front of parents and guardians in advance of doing any of this work. And I think Naomi may have mentioned this as well. working with parents to also pilot. So we actually worked with a small cohort of our students and their parents to understand how to even pilot virtual programming before we actually launched it in a larger way. And so we're also going to be partnering with the Park District because they too are doing they have their own registration system. And so from an out of school time perspective, we're partnering with them to also support what would normally be going on at the park districts and having some partnerships with them to kind of work with their kids. So I think that the biggest piece of like information I can give here is that that connection to parents, families, and guardians is essential to be able to do any of this work that we're doing at this point in time.
So the results from the poll were put into the chat just in case anybody didn't have a chance to see those. And then just a reminder, as we are discussing, please feel free to put anecdotes if you have examples of things that your organization has done in the chat. If you still have questions, that's great. Also, just as you're speaking, if you have a chance to turn on your video, I know some people turn their video off because it's a better internet connection, but sometimes it's just helpful to see friendly faces. And we'll do our best to get to all questions. We still have a few minutes to get to some of those, but just some reminders. And our colleague, Karina Morales, is observing the chat and is willing to elevate some questions or comments.
There's a question that came in from Robin. I'm Karina Morales from Northwestern, from Robin, who said, can you talk more about the small groups of parents that test drive your programs?
Janisa, would you be able to touch on our pilots and how we structured those, what parents we chose, and how those went?
So with our pilot programs, we touched base with parents that we knew had like the full capability of like the technology and the internet, and actually had access, or with the kids' schedule. It was really with the kids' schedule on the times that we were running our pilot programs to see who was coming in. We opened it up to all of our students to be able to participate within the second week of the pilot program. The first week we limited to like 4 or 5 students and parents, so we can troubleshoot, we can look at our security and work around those things at the same time.
Yeah, and I think Ali put in the text as well that we also included, our own family members. I think, Ali, you had your younger cousin participate in one of our Zoom meetings. Yeah, so it's, definitely leverage the resources of your team to make sure that, we tried to make it as real as possible for how we actually wanted our pilots or our actual programs to go. But having those test pilots definitely allowed us to do a lot of troubleshooting, which was so helpful when we actually went live. Any other questions, comments, things you want to share, anecdotes you'd like to share with the audience? Excellent. Well, I'd love to just close then with it looks like actually we have one question here, Karina.
It says, from Oz, I'm in transit, so unable to turn on video, but thank you.
Oh, great.
We are working with multiple neighborhood groups, trying to put their programming online. What is the best advice you could give them? So sorry. So what's the best advice you can give them when working with multiple neighborhood groups to try to put their programming online?
I'm going to jump in. I think the first thing is to understand what the multiple groups are trying to do, and perhaps doing a brainstorming session with those groups to then really tease out what kinds of overlap, what kinds of differences exist, and that way it starts to help create a base platform that everybody works from, and then what are the specialized pieces or the unique qualities that each of the different neighborhoods or neighborhood programs offer for young people. So I would definitely start by pulling all the groups together to have a really in-depth brainstorm, and then kind of work from there.
Yeah, I think our first webinar would probably touch well on that in terms of how to structure that brainstorming session, and how to find that commonality in your missions.
That's great. Sorry,
Go ahead.
So sorry. Yeah, so they're all individual groups that we're working with the Chicago Fund for Safe and Peaceful Communities, who has given small community grants to about 170 groups who are working independently of each other. We have been hired by the fund to help them move their programming online. So we are giving them opportunities to collaborate together, which has been really beneficial. But most of them are amateur programs and just run just for the summer to supplement when kids aren't normally in school. So a lot of it works. And so I was kind of wondering more on we're working to find them a lot of webinars and different resources like that. So it sounds like maybe I can get a recording of your first one, but as just kind of a general note, you know, is there a good list of resources where they could turn to very quickly? Or I love how much you guys are talking about involving the parents. I'm not sure if very many of them are thinking of that. So that's a great tip too. But are there any of those kind of like high level things that we would want to make sure that we are telling them?
I think that if I can say that thinking through our three solutions was basic needs resources, how to take what we normally do and put it into programs, and then a Band-Aid solution. And so we really thought about like PE cares as basic needs, virtual lives programs, that's like us in front of a computer with kids mimicking what we normally do. And then the Band-Aid solution of what do we need to do differently. And thinking it through in kind of those three categories has been really helpful for me when you feel a lot of pressure to do what you've always done, but know that there's a lot larger challenges. And that's the advice that I would give them.
Yeah, I like what Naomi's saying, and I think the piece to it, because I am familiar with SAFE and the Safe Summers projects, and so understanding what the ultimate goal was for that project. Obviously, you know, sometimes there are Black Club, you know, parties, or there's sort of this notion around how do you create a safe summer. So I think the challenge that you're going to have is understanding what the end result was going to be for that particular project and starting to backwards map to see, are you going to be able to actually achieve that actual thing? If it's in person, you know, it may not be, but what are the things that could ultimately lead to the same type of effect in this new virtual space? And so, for example, our live programs are interesting in the sense that, you want to do things in front of kids, but we knew that somehow we still had to do the work that we were doing in this virtual space. So my biggest piece of advice is exactly what Naomi said, plus like look at what the project meant to do and how do you start to back away from that to say, well, what are the things that are going to get us there, or what are the things that we're going to need to tweak and understand what the new version is. And so, you know, we internally talk about plan A, plan B, and plan C, because for summer, we are creating 3 plans. And so even as we're doing work, we're saying, this is what plan A looks like, this is what plan B looks like, and this is what plan C looks like. And I think us really, we started out just understanding and being prepared to say, you know what, let go of what we think needs to happen and be creative, be thoughtful, be innovative, and engage those people that are going to be most impacted, which is why it was so important for us to get in front of parents and kids right away, so that we knew that how we were going to operationalize this was going to work for our communities and the folks that we serve.
Yeah, I know we're running out of time here, so I do want to offer, we do have things like a parent toolkit, for example, where we, Sarah actually pulled together a lot of resources about, for example, keeping your kids safe online, making STEM fun, how to interact with our STEM at home activities. We also have a facilitator how-to manual, so the people who are actually leading the Zoom calls, our best practices documented and shared with them. And that's a resource that we'd be happy to share. This email right here, pestem@home@projectexploration.org. Reach out to us. Let us know what resources you're looking for. If it exists, we're happy to provide it to you, or at least give you our advice or point you to resources we've found helpful. Or schedule a virtual coffee with us, projectexploration.org/coffee. We can actually set up a face-to-face meeting with us and the team members that are most helpful to your request or your need.
I think was somebody raising their hand, William Martinez. I don't know if you had your hand raised, if you would like to say something.
Yes, I was just checking to see if anyone has anything planned for the kids for Memorial Day weekend, knowing that Memorial Day weekend is one of our most violent weekends. So I was trying to see if we are going to come up with any plan, anything to address the kids to keep them in, because of the social distancing aspect and them itching to get out, and it's going to be the weekend, and it's going to be so we have to try to get them some sort of project to stay inside the house.
Yeah, Officer Martinez, thank you for bringing that up. I think that one of the things that I want to just also say, and we work with Officer Martinez. He's amazing. He's part of the 15th district and is really out here trying to make sure kids are safe. I think the one thing that we had to be mindful of is understanding our reach and stretch. And so we know from our perspective that as much as we want to be able to support, these types of times, right? Like 2 weekends ago, it was nice and sunny, and there's really not much that we can do. But I think that having these conversations and then continuing to look at the My Shy, My Future as a way to be able to say, hey, these are things that are happening for young people is important. And, I hate to say this, a lot of us right now are thinking like, well, how do we pivot? But pivoting means making a shift that is consistent with your mission and your vision. And so we've had to be really mindful because there's a lot of activities that we could probably participate in, but because it's not really core to who we are as an organization, we want to stay focused. And so I would really put it out there that we need to start to talk to the organizations that who's in their mission is to kind of think about these larger efforts. And we are very much a partner agency. So if there's things that we can do with Build or Westside Health Authority or, Illinois Institute for Nonviolence Prevention, we are all in to say, hey, this is a way that we can help communicate. These are the kinds of things that can happen for young people to keep them safe. So I don't want to say that we're not here to keep kids safe during Memorial Day weekend, because of course I'm terrified of it, but I am saying that from an organizational perspective, staying true to our course and finding as many ways for us to be able to be supportive of our families through the mechanisms that we can provide, versus trying to create mechanisms that are not organic to who we are as an organization.
So yeah, because from what you guys do and how good you are with technology, so there's always a way to figure some sort of initiative where you could fit in to still help.
Yeah.
And so, we can, for my idea that I was trying to work with, which is what I thought I was going to be able to say, hey guys, this is what, we thought, and see where everyone stood on it. But this meeting, I didn't have a chance, was more of an aspect of doing a video game tournament to keep the kids inside. I don't have the reach. It's me, a officer, trying to get it. But if the mayor's initiative was to ask, can we do a Fortnite, an NBA 2K tournament to keep the kids in the whole weekend, then that can actually be technology, and you guys can do a webinar and teach people how to do, to do in that aspect. And if the mayor's on board, if the mayor was to contact Fortnite or even the police superintendent, and you were able to play as the mayor for that weekend, we wouldn't have kids on the street at all. So it's thinking outside the box.
Yeah, you know what, Officer Martinez, that's a great idea. Let me reach out to you directly, and let's see what we can strategize, because I think we could probably think about how to do this with the parks too. So I will. Yeah. I've got your email, so I'll reach out.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, and something, I think in general, if you have an idea like that, elevating it to partner organizations to be like, hey, what are you guys doing for Memorial Day weekend? Are you doing anything? Would you like to join forces in coming up with a solution? I think that's always a great way to approach it. So thank you, Officer Martinez. I want to pass it over to the Northwestern team to close us out.
Thank you. So just on our last slide here, and of course this is recorded and this will be shared on the My Shy, My Future Partners page, which you can see the link up at the top there. And then direct contacts for if you want to join Project Exploration for Coffee, totally amazing. And then they have an email address if you have questions about kits and things like that. And then of course our OSEP at Northwestern, if you have ideas, if you want to host your own webinar, if you're interested in collaboration, if you have questions about My Shy, My Future and the partners work, we're happy to answer any of your questions. And we thank you so much for joining us today. And for those of you who were able to stay a little bit later, we appreciate your time.
And then Emily, I just want to throw this out. If anybody's interested in virtual coffee, you will get a handy dandy coffee mug sent to your house. So that's extra incentive in case you want to learn more.
I gotta sign up.
That's amazing.
Thank you, everyone. It looks like it's a beautiful day out. Go enjoy this lovely Friday.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. Have a wonderful weekend, everyone.